right, YouTube, here we are, Pastor Dowell here. Hey, I had a question come to me after watching the video I did of the lands of the brethren down there in Alabama/Tennessee area. And the question came to me, and they said, in all sincerity, and in all seriousness, Pastor Dowell, seriousness, how is the ministry of Straitway so successful in developing communities? I said, okay, let me try another approach and another way of looking at this again. All right, let's try this way. You know, in the scriptures, there are certain principles. And again, if you listen to me for any length of time whatsoever at all, if you have even heard me talk for any length of time whatsoever at all, I'm usually like a one-string banjo. I'm just repetitive, keep saying the same thing over and over again. I may pick up a different banjo, it's still got the same string and the same tension on it, and I'm still playing that same old note. I'm going to say this again, and I'm going to try to break it down to its lowest common denominator. I want you to all listen to me if you're really, truly listening. You can apply these principles whether you're on community, homestead, or even in your own home. Hopefully that you'll get with the book and do what it says, and forsake not the fellowship or the assembly together, the manner of some is. But Yahshua, Jesus, he gave us so many principles that people should live by. I mean, he tried to talk to us so plain. And one way he talked to us, the one way that he talked to us was this. He said this, I want to see if y'all can follow me. Whatsoever a man soweth, that shall he also reap. If I plant wheat and I cultivate and I till the ground, labor, and I caretake it, what's the chances of more wheat coming up? If I plant corn and I take care of the ground, I till the ground, I cultivate it, work, what's the chances of corn coming up? How about this? How about all I did was just live on a hope and I planted nothing? What am I going to yield by doing nothing? I know a lot of people don't want to hear this. I'm going to tell you what you're going to get. Thorns, thistles, dirt, mud. You know the reason why? Because we don't understand the simple principles of God, which are eternal principles. You've got to actually do. Here we go. Blessed are not the hearers, but the doers. And the only reason why I make these videos, I hope that they are an inspiration. Because even when I make these videos, I hope that they are inspiring someone. Now, are they benefiting you? If you can actually see the example. But unless you're a partaker in that, you'll never understand what it means to have the benefit. I mean, after all, the only thing I'm doing is just bringing the book off the pages to where you can see it practically in our life in the time that we're living in. Whatsoever man soweth, that shall he also reap. And then also this. For which are you intending to build a tower? You go out there to build it, but you couldn't finish it. We're not all those people that stood by and said, look, this man intended to build, now we're going to laugh at him. Because he couldn't finish. What is that principle saying? A plan. You got to have a plan and then follow through with it. And if you don't put time, energy, and effort, skill and endurance, sacrifice and commitment into your plan, here we go again. Whatsoever man soweth, that shall he also reap. Are we beginning to get this? Are we beginning to understand this? All right. Principle number 2. If you're going out here laboring and all you're doing is paying bills to advance and prosper somebody else's life, in other words, I know a lot of you want to hear this, but I'm going to say it again. The borrower is a servant to the lender. Let's get more Hebraic with it. The borrower is a slave to the lender. You see, in order for you to comprehend and understand these principles, I've always told people, listen, don't go out here and get a bunch of debt. Don't get in debt. You know the reason why? Rather than turning around, paying a monthly car note of $700-800, or paying a mortgage, $1,500, $2,000, sometime upwards of $3,500. How about if you live simple like nobody else does? Let the people mock you. Let them deride you, chide you, ridicule you. I mean, I received a lot of that. A lot, man, they was laughing at me. They're out there doing this. They were laughing. Ooh, were they laughing? You know what I was doing? Building and owing no man nothing but to love them. In other words, when I went out there and I actually put my hand to the plow, labor, you know, which some of you are trying to avoid. When I put my hand to the plow, I went out there and I learned how to run a backhoe. I learned how to run a dozer. I learned how to work a skid steer. I learned how to run an excavator. I learned how to run a mini excavator. I learned how to run a track hoe. I learned how to run a loader dozer. I learned how, because each one of them have a slightly different dynamic to it. I did. I learned how to do it. I learned how to run a ditch witch. I learned how to learn all of this. And then, on that, I learned how to square a building. I learned how to dig the foundations, pour the foundations. And I learned what it meant when he says, when you build a foundation, you need to build it upon a solid rock. In other words, the house is no good without a solid foundation. And instead of building the majority of our homes with wood, I'm building it with stone, concrete. And it's not built upon sand. Y'all begin to understand this. In other words, I took all these principles to heart. So instead of me going there paying everybody else to go do something that I'm more than capable of doing it myself, I mean, I do give myself some credit, even though it's a little bit, that I do have the intelligence. I do have the whereabouts and the know-it-all. And I'm skillful enough to be able to put these hands to the plow. Now, they can do it, I can do it. So rather than paying people all this money and labor and stuff, guess what? I can save that money, put it back in, and invest it in more building material and put my own sweat equity into the ground. And guess what? I begin to prosper. And as I begin to prosper, I even help those who are with me prosper even more so. Well, now guess what? People are not laughing at Pastor Dowell no more. They surely not. Here we are now sitting some 12 communities later in the ministry as a Straitway, somewhere either close to or upwards of 800 acres of land. Ain't nobody laughing no more. No, people are just simply not laughing anymore. It just ain't funny no more. So now they have to come up with other ways to create some type of injurious, slanderous remarks because it comes from envy. I mean, after all, that's what they did with the Messiah. They delivered him for envy. In other words, there's nothing he could do that these prideful, arrogant, egotistical, self-willed people would ever give him credit for because they weren't doing it themselves. I gave you two biblical principles that if you ask anybody in the ministries of Straitway, I have lived by them. And I've taught others to live by them. And those who have followed me in this regeneration, they are all prospering and they're still prospering. It sure is nice when you can take money that comes into your hand and you can invest every single bit of it back into the land that the Most High Yah gave you. And you can prosper that land. You can cultivate that land. You can till on that land. You can build on that land. And as you begin to grow in favor, grow in knowledge, that's what grace is favor. The Most High Yah will see your work and he would increase you. Then he would even make your enemies to be at peace. Now, he didn't say the new enemies wasn't coming because they're always going to come. Somebody's always trying to frustrate the work. I gave you those two principles just to start with. if you would do those, you would prosper and be in good health. Y'all have a wonderful day.